Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of 10 for the Chairman. For those of you that haven't seen this before, this is where I take 10 questions from the subscribers from our community. For those who don't know who our subscribers are, that's the subset of our community that kick in money every month to allow us to do extra community content like this 10 for the Chairman, Around the Verse. We publish a 50 to 70 page magazine every month called Jump Point that has a lot of sort of more detail behind the scenes coverage. And we're doing other stuff for subscribers, which is kind of fun. But one of the perks of being subscribers, you get to ask questions and I answer them as best I can. So thank you to subscribers for allowing us to do that. And before I start, there was a couple of things that we got, so I always think it's fun to show it off. So we had this rather cool poster that was sent in by Applejack of Ben playing Mr. Big Shot. There we go, let's try to do it. There we go back. Mr. Big Shot on the very first episode of Around the Verse, which is a pretty damn cool poster picture. And I get it off the table now. Put that down. And then, not necessarily a fan gift, although I guess AMD are kind of fans, but I thought this would be kind of cool to show because this is the Vesuvius card, and the kind of cool thing about it is basically it's its own fully water-cooled closed-loop setup on a card, which is that's pretty impressive hardware. So we'll get this plugged in and see how many polygons we can push around. But yeah, I mean, look at that. You're not putting this in a micro case, I'll tell you that. Anyway, thank you very much, AMD, as well. So anyone else? NVIDIA, you want to send me some cool cards? I'm very happy to take them. All right, let's go to the questions. So the first question comes from Dragster, who asks, once the persistent universe is officially released and the days of alpha and beta testing are over, will Arena Commander follow the rules of non-FTL communication, which effectively means you can only play Arena Commander matches against other players that are located on the same planet or space station as yourself? That's a pretty good question. I would say that we hadn't really thought about that. So kind of a gut reaction to that is that's an interesting concept. Normally I would think we're planning to have Arena Commander, well, two things, have sort of competition inside our universe. And so that would actually be kind of cool. You could have people could compete, but you'd have to travel to this system for the tournament and play there. So that could be a possible cool game element that sort of is a game within a game and also playing inside our universe. But in general, we were kind of thinking that Arena would just sort of allow you to play with your friends or against other people in general around the universe. And maybe fudge a little sort of FTL side. But I'll take this under consideration because it does have some cool mechanics. It's just the downside is you don't really want to be stuck in a system when no one else is around that you can play around with or train with. But these will all be things that we'll play with when we get the persistent universe up and running, because I do like the idea of the game inside the game and then having it adhere to the rules of the universe. Okay, next question comes from Ostrom, who asks, we've seen several lore bits already about the different HUD manufacturers and their offerings and how ships are going to have unique HUDs down the road. I remember in Wing Commander Privateer, you had to work your way up to a fully functional HUD, i.e. color radar. If so, are the different HUDs going to different capabilities? So yes, that is absolutely 100% yes. We're actually doing a pass right now to have the HUDs between the Hornet and the 300i and the Aurora be different, and the other ships we'll bring in will also have their own sort of look and difference of HUD, and we're also going to have different functionality that the ship's sort of targeting computers, ship systems will bring in. So a more bare bones ship will have a lot less sort of heads-up features than, say, a dedicated dogfighter with a state-of-the-art technology. So not all of that's there. Like right now, you pretty much get the whole package, but the idea would be, for instance, the Hornet could track multiple targets at once, whereas an Aurora can only track one target at once. And some of the targeting stuff on a base ship wouldn't necessarily be on the would be a sort of simple set, and then you could buy extra add-ons to add features to maybe track more targets, to do different firing solutions, all those kind of things, because it'll let you customize the look and the functionality are two things that we have planned for the HUD. So it's early days on that, and it should be pretty cool long term. Next question comes from VillaOvie, who asks, as you know, when new MMOs get launched, most of the time they are plagued by gold farmers and gold sellers and botting. Well, maybe in this case, UEC farmers and sellers. They tend to affect the economy and many other things. How are you going to approach this issue with the economy being so important to the persistent universe? We're pretty aware of sort of the gold farmer, gold seller, and the botting side. It's one of the reasons why the one form of revenue that we were thinking that the game would have, besides selling the initial package, because we're not going to have sort of in-game subscriptions like you have typically on like World of Warcraft or something, is that we would sell the UEC credits within a certain limited amount to players, so you don't actually have to go and buy it from someone farming, because that's always going to happen. And we're sort of thinking of different ways that allow money transfers to happen in the game that hopefully potentially could sort of curtail a certain amount of the kind of gold farming and all that kind of stuff. I will say that in general it's pretty hard to clamp that down, because people can always sort of even sell an account if you prevent people from sending money to someone else inside the game. We haven't made all the full rules, but in our universe it will be like the real world, so you just can't willy-nilly transfer money and transfer items and equipment to other people without having to pay some form of, like in the real world, you have to transfer title, and it costs you to transfer title on a car, and if you give people something, they have to pay taxes. And so we have various things that are trying to be a little like the real world in the persistent universe design that will hopefully replicate some stuff that's in the real world. And some of that may or may not help to reduce some of the botting and the gold farming. I think the biggest thing is if they can get it from a trusted source, i.e. us, and that's all that's guaranteed, then you tend to go for that unless someone's radically undercutting you on prices, and that's obviously something that we would try to go after, because we don't want to have the game destroyed by someone saying, here, I'm going to sell you my account and I've got 20 billion credits in it and I'll give it to you for $5. Those are all sort of things that would be sort of no-nos against our policies. But like I said, it's early days, so we'll see. It's always a constant struggle. I think no one's got a magic silver bullet for that, but we're aware, and we've got quite a few people that have worked on some big MMOs, and so there are some ideas and solutions, but I don't want to share too many of them, because obviously you want to keep some of that on the in reserve. Okay, next question comes from IT, who asks, has there been any discussion amongst the developers about the possibility of attempting to create a format of third-person gameplay when not in a ship that doesn't give a tactical advantage of vision in combat over those who prefer first-person gameplay? Yeah, so it's kind of interesting, because in the engine right now we allow you to switch between first and third person, mainly because we really think the ships look great and the characters look great, and we like to show off the cool graphics. And that's kind of the focus has been, if you want to be in combat doing action, you want to be in first person, because you get all this extra information via your HUD and all the rest of the stuff that you would get. And the same would go on first person combat. Like if you're in a combat suit, you will get a HUD in your visor. If you're and of course if you were sort of in third person, you wouldn't get that, and it would be much harder to aim, etc., etc. And that's the same for flying around. So I think I'm sort of leaning towards that direction, so you can sort of admire your avatar and what clothes he's wearing and stuff like that. But we definitely want to make sure if you switch to third person, you're not really getting a tactical advantage. Really for aiming and shooting, both flying your ship and on foot, it needs to be in first person. So there you go. Next question comes from Jazero, who asks, has any consideration been given supporting other head-mount displays other than the Oculus Rift? Have you seen any of the new technologies such as Sony Morpheus and Avgant Glyph, I guess? So I haven't seen that one, obviously. Is this possible to support the other devices within Star Citizen? Yes, we haven't. So the Morpheus right now, from my understanding, is just for the PS4. If they let it be used on a PC, then we would definitely look at supporting that. And there's already been some work that has been done actually in CryEngine to support that by Crytek. I don't know what the Afghan glyph is, but if it's cool, we probably would. I mean, we've looked at some other stuff like space glasses, which is sort of a cool glass you can wear that has an overlay on top, which may be something interesting for sort of an overlaid HUD setup. But yeah, we kind of want to support a bunch of sort of head-mounted displays and things also like Track AR. So that's all on our list of stuff to do. It all depends on what the tech's like and is it cool, and also does it sort of fit in with what we've done. So, you know, if we're already doing Oculus Rift support, then things like Sony Morpheus is an easier thing to support than doing it from scratch. So the answer is yes, there has been some considerations. We're not quite sure exactly the extent of it. Okay, next question comes from Monroe Allens, who asks, will we get to select our home planets in the persistent universe? If we can, will this give us a small reputation bonus with the locals, or perhaps reduce prices on certain items on our home planet? So what we're not going to start everybody on the same planet, because obviously that would be a problem, everyone would crowd. So we're going to distribute people around the universe. We were thinking that potentially there was some stuff that could happen in Squadron 42 that would sort of indicate which way you would want to go, or maybe when you muster out, you sort of get a opportunity or an option to sort of head to one of X number of planets. So you basically should be able to select your starting planet in the persistent universe from a selection that we give you. It won't be every single planet, but it'll be some number of it, and then at that point you'll venture out, and we'll try to distribute that around so everyone doesn't clump into one area. Okay, next question comes from Uchu, who asks, concerning ship variants, how many of the ships will receive variants and how many will you leave for players to experiment with in-game without set predetermined variants? So generally the rule of thumb is that we tend to do variants on the more common ships. So the idea is just like, like a 3 Series BMW is pretty common, and it has, the three, it used to have anyway, the 315 and the 325 and 330 and diesel version, and it's probably got a hybrid version now, or electric version. So for the common ships, so things like the Aurora, obviously the Hornet, the 300i, the Freelancer, the Constellation, the Cutlass, will all have variants, and then a couple other ones like the Mustang, which is meant to be a starter ship, would probably have some variants. And then some of the bigger ships, the more unique ships, won't necessarily have a variant, or if they do have a variant, it may be, here's the military version, here's the civilian version. So that's kind of our rule of thumb, but it's not set in stone. But we do think that the more common ships would probably have different variants for different roles. And then, of course, on top of that, you can take the base hull and add on different equipment and items to sort of further customize it towards the role you want to play when you're flying around in space. Okay, so next question comes from Junsu, who asks, with all the instancing that will be going on, what is the expectation around loading times? Is there a target amount of time to load instances that you're aiming for? I'm assuming more memory will help with this. The way we're building the system is you hopefully will not be able to perceive the loading times per se, because we're basically going to be streaming the data in and out. So right now we don't. So right now when you go into arena mode, it loads a level and loads up the stuff in a very traditional manner. But one of the tech things that we have on our plate that's part of sort of the package that we're moving to full double precision is also sort of the streaming of objects into the world. So the way it's meant to work is that when you're flying around in space, in your worldview, things just stream in and out all the time. So you have no perception of like loading screens or loading time. And what we do is we sort of take advantage of, say, going into sort of the equivalent of warp space when we're in autopilot or landing on a planet, where in those cases, you're sort of in an automated flight and you can still move around your ship or look around, but everything outside of you, the stars are blurring by, and then we're basically dumping the old objects from the area that you're leaving and streaming in the new objects into your local client machine. And then once that's happened, and after the predetermined time of travel in sort of warp space, you'll come out. So it won't feel as much. Hopefully will not feel like a loading screen. It should all feel fairly seamless. That's the way I think it will work. I will recommend SSD. The super cheap now makes all game experience and OS much better. So I would go for that no matter what, irrelevant. But we'll generally try to stream everything instead of actually have separate loading screens or times. Okay, next question comes from Locke Ravenford, who asks, my question has to do with electronic warfare. With inclusion of the encrypted core of the Drake Herald info runner and ongoing development of sea actions on capital ships, are there any plans for an electronic warfare metagame beyond the signature-based system you've spoken about in the past? What will be the role of hacking? So yes, there is actually on a capital ship, on some of the bigger ones, we've actually discussed as part of the capital ship setup, having one of the stations being sort of electronic warfare and potentially trying to hack or invade the other person's ship. So we're actually actively looking at doing that, and we'll probably have maybe some of that like involved in sort of info running and the Drake Herald stuff. And we're certainly going to have sort of more brute force stuff like, you know, EMF and all that kind of stuff. So, so yes, the question would be, there will be more beyond the signature system. So look to the future when we have a much more detailed sort of info dump on the capital ships, which will be down the road. But I think you guys will enjoy that. Okay, last question comes from Perry the Cynic, who asks, hopefully not a cynical question, please explain the in-game rationale for the speed limit. Is it imposed by the flight control system or the physics engine? Isn't the notion of absolute speed an inherent contradiction to Newtonian physics? What alternatives have you explored for getting the dogfight feel you want? So the in-game rationale for well, there's two, right? So there's a practical rationale for the speed limit, as in physics engines break down when you get very large numbers, which would include large speeds. Because they just don't have the precision to handle it. Now we're going to move cryophysics over to 64-bit as part of our move to double precision, so that will help a little bit. And then there's a fun play-wise when you're going so fast. You know, it's not that much fun dogfighting. Someone will just flash past you and they'll be gone, and then you have to turn around and get on them again, and that would take a long time. And that's kind of what would you know, future real warfare, I think, in space would mostly evolve completely around computers calculating everyone, and who has the best computer and targeting solution would probably win the battle. But the in-game rationale for the speed limit, and this also could apply to the real world now, is that if we assume that the ships are flown by humans, and we assume that there isn't really any way of absorbing or counteracting the G-forces that a human body experience under like extreme accelerations, and yes, I know that in space, you know, everything's relative, so if I'm just carrying on going at a, you know, even the speed of light, it's not going to affect me. But the acceleration to get up to a high speed, or the acceleration to how you're going this way and then you want to go exactly the opposite way back, and if you do that in a short period of time, that's a lot of acceleration. So the concept is, if you're going to have real human beings fly and you don't have anything like sort of gravity absorption technologies, then you probably would want to limit your sort of dogfighting range speed down to a reasonable range. Maybe it wouldn't be as low as what we have, but to a range that's small enough that would not allow the pilot to make radical maneuvers, i.e. going in this direction and then quickly flip the other way in a very short period of time without hurting or killing themselves. And so that's kind of sort of the in-fictional stuff, is that like the way the ship systems work is that when it knows that you're close to other ships and dogfighting, or potentially just trying to avoid them on collision bases, it keeps your speeds low, because obviously at fast speeds you can't also avoid collisions, because to move a small amount of time, to move the distance you would have to do to avoid a collision when you're traveling really fast would create a huge amount of acceleration over a short period of time, which would probably kill the crew or the pilot on board. And so the idea is that the IFCS would limit the speeds to reasonable amounts when you're sort of doing extreme maneuvers, or you're close to other ships where you could have collisions, and then when you're not, it allows you to go up to, you know, I think our top warp speed's meant to be 0.2 speed of light, which is pretty damn fast. And then, you know, as you got close to other ships, and then I wouldn't have the ability to be able to avoid them, it would slow you down and bring you back down to a sort of sort of a kind of whatever maneuvering / dogfighting speed. So that's kind of the in-game fiction. It makes sense also in the practicality of the physics. Would it be limited to the speeds we have? Probably not quite as low, but the other thing we want to do is have it low enough that you can get up close and you sort of really sort of appreciate and see the ships and get that sort of close dogfighting feel. And it's really not that close, because I'm pretty sure if any of you playing multiplayer or even in the sort of Vandal Swarm modes, you well, it's kind of, you can collide with things pretty easy coming towards you because the speed's deceptive. So we're actually doing some other stuff to get across the sensor speed, because you are traveling faster than I think a lot of people realize, but we just need to have more of the space dust, a bit more shake as you're going faster, narrow the field of view, a bit louder sound, and I think you'll get a much better sensation or feeling of speed, even though you'll be kind of traveling more or less the same distance. All right, that's my last number 10 question for this today's 10 for the Chairman. So thank you all for listening. I wanted to thank all the subscribers for making this possible, and also all the backers for backing Star Citizen. We couldn't be making the game without you. We couldn't have this huge team of people working across the world to build the most crazily ambitious space game possible. And it's all down to you guys allowing us to do it at this level of scale and ambition. So thank you very, very much. We're working really hard, having a great time, working hard on getting Arena Commander up and working properly for you guys. Still got a ways to go. But thank you all, and I'll talk to you next week. Goodbye.